with all the big calls on all those big races. Yes, you know the drill, regular viewers out there. It's time, Friday morning, summer in the capital, for another What a Shout classic weekend on the horizon. And it's absolutely classic to have you with us again. Great show coming up for you. Myself, Dave Orton, thrilled to be back steering the ship. We will be looking at both the 2,000 and 1,000 guineas at Newmarket for you. A sterling card, all change. It's on the flat. We go from now on, building up a wonderful season with our sponsors, Bet365. Let's have some fun. Like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Anything on Facebook, get your comments in below. And Twitter, hashtag What a Shout. Can't wait to hear from you out there. Can't wait to hear from Matt Gardner, who joins us back. You're becoming quite popular on these shows, Matt. I don't say that with a surprise, but for anyone who doesn't know Matt, he's one of our latest handicappers, the Brains Trust, if you like. You had the jump season, but it's fair to say you really do get excited for the flat, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I got into the jumpers actually this season, more so than I have done before, really. But I'm much happier this time of year. Kind of golf course, all that sort of stuff, flat racing. You know,
okay, all right.
That's my more.
All right, get a bit of sun on your back, you mean? Yeah, well, there's not a lot of rain around, is there? Let's just have a brief chat about the flat season. Bring in Pat Cooney as well from our sponsors, Bet365, who is where?
Yes, sunny Stoke-on-Trent, and heading off to Newmarket this evening for 2 wonderful days.
Oh, lovely, Pat. Yes, absolutely. We all have an affinity with you and Newmarket. Pat, let's stick with you. Of course, it's been Punchestown this week. We're coming off the back, aren't we, of a wonderful weekend at Sandown. That must have been great fun for you. What is the turnover going to be like now? Are people ready for this?
Oh, absolutely, yes. It's very much, all systems go now for the flat racing. And business is buoyant, really. You did wonder a little bit with Native Trail being such a short price favourite, how would that affect turnover? But no, it's been excellent. And of course, we've got a pretty wide open 1,000 guineas on the Sunday as well. So, we've had Punchestown. We've just come back off Sandown, of course. So very much people in very much betting mode at the moment. So 2 very, very good races to look forward to. Yeah, and we'll be previewing them in their entirety. In fact, all the group races from Newmarket this weekend coming your way. Let's keep with this flat narrative, though. A lot of it's the same line at the moment, isn't it? This is all improvised, by the way, guys. You could probably tell there. Small fields at the moment. Newmarket on Friday, 24 runners across the card. Same line as everyone else? Too much racing? I don't know. Selling the horses, all that. Is it all that jazz, or is it?
I think it's a little bit of everything, isn't it? Maybe too many opportunities for these horses to be spread about. Horses going overseas, being sold, like you say. Some really good ones as well that almost are kind of putting off the competition as well, possibly a little bit. So yeah, a little bit of everything, I'd say. You are specifically looking at 2-year-olds this year, aren't you? And let's get a little bit excited, shall we, for the current crop, because it does seem a little bit freaky still, doesn't it, that we come out of Cheltenham, go straight to Lincoln Saturday at Donny, and then we have to wait until the all-weather championships, if you like, before we really start getting back on the grass. Now we can say, I think we're fully on in flat mode. Old school punters will tell you, Matt, you know that this is the time to start betting on the flat. Wait to the guineas, the form is bedded in. But the top of your 2-year-old figures, Matt does all the RPRs for the 2-year-olds at the Racing Post, is still the Brocklesby winner, isn't it? Yeah, first one we saw, Persian Force. He was an unusual Brocklesby winner in a way, in that he was just much better than most of them are. I think he was the highest one on RPRs for a good few years at least. To be honest, the early ones have been a pretty good standard. We mentioned Persian Force, Tajala, 98, 99 Persian Force. Been some good Irish ones, Aidan O'Brien with a couple.
He's hit the ground running, Aidan, big time.
Yeah, and that's unusual for him as well. A lot of his 2-year-olds don't necessarily win first time out. They improve a lot going into their second run. You look at like Aesop's Fables, Little Big Bear, Tough Talk for Gay Lions. They're running to a high standard early in the season, and obviously they're you yet to see any really big clashes. But when they do get to take each other on, that's when the bigger figures start to come, and there's plenty to get excited about, I think. Yeah, Royal Ascot firmly on the horizon now, isn't it? Of course, we've got the Dante meet to come. We've got the Derbies, but it's all about the classics this weekend. Let's have a look at what we've got coming up on the show for you and really start getting into the nitty-gritty. Thrilled to say that we're about to go to an interview with Newmarket trainer, very much up and coming, James Ferguson. Big runner on Sunday for him. Then we'll be looking at 2 races on Saturday, including the 2,000, and on Sunday, including the 1,000, before those all-important weekend winners.
Right, so it's a warm Watershelt debut. Loads of these coming your way in recent weeks. To Newmarket trainer James Ferguson. Group 1 winning trainer, of course. James, it's fair to say that since 2020, when you had your first winner at Southwell, things have gone rather well.
Yeah, no, things have been going well, thank God. I've been very lucky. We've got a great team of staff here, and like I said, we've been lucky. We've had some good horses, and they've been running consistently, which is really important.
Typically modest then, James, because you did get that Group 1 breakthrough last year at Saint-Cloud. Let's get your best horses up for the viewers out there by Racing Post rating. Now, 56 winners so far, James. You've not been training long. You've had COVID to deal with, of course, in all that time. I'm sure we could get into the politics of it all. But El Bodegon, however we say it, is he now on the Derby trail?
Yeah, very much so. He's wintered well. He obviously was a superstar for us last year, giving us our first Group 1 winner. Over 1.25 miles as a 2-year-old, so shouldn't have any problem staying 1.5 miles. His full brother was a horse called Best Solution, who actually came second in the Grand Criterion de Saint-Cloud. And he stayed a lot further and actually got better with age. So we're confident we'll stay the 1.5 miles. The owners have been big supporters of ours, and he ran so well at 2. If he improves, he'll be a contender in the Derby. Yeah.
That must have kept you warm during the winter, James. I mean, you've had lots of all-weather runners. We've got to see the other horses on there. First Folio being one. Diderot, of course, who came over and did so well for you. And I believe he's going to Chester May meeting. Is that right?
Yeah, he got entered. He's just been entered today. He is going running on the turf. I haven't run him on the turf before, but the split mark helps. He's fits into a nice handicap there, and I'm stepping him up to 1.25 miles. So he's ran very consistently. Apart from that one run at Newcastle,
yeah.
It was great to see him bounce back at Kempton, and offer lighter weight on the turf. If he takes the turf like he did on the all-weather, I think he'll be a fun horse.
That's a word on him then. I think he will, absolutely. Once he just learns to settle down, gets a proper pace, going around the bend. I can't wait to see him at Chester then. That's coming up soon for our viewers. Just a final word on your top horse then. What sort of trial are you looking at then at the moment, James? Would the weather come into it at all? I mean, there's not much rain around, is there?
For El Bodegon?
Yeah.
He's actually going, all being well, he's going to France, back to Saint-Cloud, back to the scene of the crime. He's going back, and he will run in the Prix Greffiul on Sunday the 8th.
Great stuff. There you go. Hot off the press then, because he's got a huge following, this horse. And you're on an upward trajectory. We see First Folio then, James, one of 2 runners for you this weekend, coming up on television on Saturday. But let's concentrate on him back at Newmarket then. Again, for this wonderful syndicate of owners, he has just kept improving.
Yeah, and funnily enough, we always said last year when we got him in, what a lovely 4-year-old he'd make. He still hadn't finished developing. He was very, very quick last year, which we found out very early. Very well bought by the owners group team from France. Had just been lacking that firmer ground in France that he was obviously crying out for. He went and won well at Yarmouth, and then ran at Newmarket, sent him up to York, and he improved again. He's a horse with plenty of confidence at the moment. He's done really well over the winter, and seeing as he was able to win fresh first time out last year, I'd love to see him win a big race this time on our home track.
Yeah, it's a great syndicate, isn't it, those guys? And are we looking at the big sprint handicaps for him then? Your Stewards, your Wokinghams, all that sort of stuff?
The Wokingham certainly has to come into play, but I do think this is a horse that, I'll start out in handicaps, but I would love him to bridge the gap from handicaps to pattern class. So if he improves as much as he did from 2 to 3, I would love to see him win a big one, especially for those guys. They've been big supporters of ours, and it's wonderful having them in the yard. And there are so many people involved. they stop you on the high street and ask how their horses are. So it's a great fun syndicate, and they do very well buying good horses. And it would be wonderful to get a big one.
They talked about you as a great communicator whenever I bump into them, like you do, James, that's for sure. Let's talk about State Legend then, if you don't mind, over at Goodwood. Lovely to have the racing back at Goodwood on a Saturday. He looks nice and progressive.
Yes, he is. He obviously won very well at Doncaster on Saturday. He ran very well on the quick ground. I do think the step up and trip had a lot to do with it, but I think the ground certainly had more to do with it. He's been a super horse. He's a lovely horse to have in the yard. He's a very cool customer. And yes, we've been hiked up in the handicap, but I've decided to drop him back in trip, take the opportunity to have our last chance running in that grade in a 0-75. Got a very good claimer on in Benoit de la Sayette, and think that if he can handle the drop back and trip, he's won over 1.25 miles for me twice before. If he can handle the drop back and trip, I'd say he'd be going there in good order. He's certainly come out of the race well. Can't forgive him if he's a little bit tired, but I'm running him with full confidence that he's in good nick.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something you do, isn't it? Look to get your horses out quickly if you can. OK, let's move to Sunday then. The big day for you. We'll get to the 1,000 guineas in a minute. Classic runner, pressure on. Because it's 2-year-old time and your first one comes out for you. She's been entered, right?
The filly's been entered in the 1,000 guineas, and I've entered a 2-year-old into the maiden, yeah.
Remind me the name of the 2-year-old. The Exceeding Excel, isn't it?
The 2-year-old is an Exceeding Excel colt called Beautiful Sunrise.
There we are.
He's owner's a lovely man, and he's it's his first horse in training with us. So it'd be wonderful if he could have a good one. Bought by Mark McStay at the sales for Avenue Bloodstock. Look, it's our first 2-year-old runner. I think the horse has got plenty of speed. Whether he's quick enough for 5 furlongs or not, I hope he is, but certainly a horse that will improve for the run. But I do think he's fit enough to go and do himself justice.
How many 2-year-olds have you got in training at the moment, James?
We'd have about 30 here, I'd say.
Plenty then. All right, well, good luck with them going forward. Let's hope you get off to a flyer on Sunday. Certainly an interesting Exceeding Excel coming out for you. Right, the big one on Sunday. Classic time. Mise en scene then. The prestige winner from last year on our very own price-wise, Tom Siegel, put this up as his anti-post selection. The plunge was there. Went to Del Mar, of course. Things didn't quite pan out. But if you go back to that Goodwood form, she was a first-time out winner last year. How confident are you?
Look, I think we're going into it with plenty of confidence in terms of the fact that we know she's in great form. It's a very hard race. It's a classic. You've got all the big trainers in there. It'll be in my opinion, it's going to be hard to beat Tenebrism and Discoveries. But we're there. We're in great form. We've run at the track before, and we've run well at the track before when she ran in the Fillies Mile. I think you can put a line through Del Mar. It's nigh on impossible to win from that draw. She's matured from the experience. She's wintered well. We've fingers crossed we have a smooth run. We've got 2 days to get there, and fingers crossed she runs a big race. That the owners are massive supporters of racing in general, let alone supporters of me, and I would absolutely love to win a big one for them. It'd be really important.
Well, this is a huge one, absolutely. I've no doubt you'll be feeling the pressure a little bit. If she comes back to that Goodwood form, she's a grinder, isn't she? I watched back that Fillies Mile, James, which all you viewers can do, of course, on your members club. Have a look at it. She just gets messed about a little bit and is coming back towards the finish, isn't she? I think we could say that she handles the dip all right. Just looking at the dam side of the pedigree, there is stamina there. Further afield?
Absolutely. I think the Guineas, although it's our first real massive target of the year. You definitely have the option of stepping her up, being out of a Galileo mare. She's whether we decide to leave her at a mile, step her up to 1.25 miles, or even try her over 1.5 miles. She's very, very clever. So I don't think settling and going the distance will be a problem. But she's very quick. A mile does suit at the moment, and you know, if she runs similar to the Fillies Mile and has a bit of a smoother run, I'd say she'll be very close.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you all the way. James, honestly, thanks for coming on to What a Shout. It's been a long time since we've been waiting for the opportunity. You've made time for us. Friday morning, we're filming in the capital. Fingers crossed, the dream is still alive.
The dream's still alive, no, and you know, let's hope, try to bring it home.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Great stuff. James Ferguson, what a pleasure that was. Well, that was a pleasure, wasn't it? I mean, James Ferguson, one senses he's quietly confident of a big run for his Qatar racing filly. Mise en scene in the 340, of course, which we will be previewing right about now. Let's have a go then. OK, let's start off at the 3 o'clock in the Palace House. One big segment of in-depth analysis and a tip in each race, starting in the Sprinters division. Before I go to Matt, Pat, let's come to you, because of all the markets that we're about to preview, one senses this might be the most volatile.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think I can be a bit more help than I normally am with these type of races, because when Twilight Calls won on his seasonal reappearance, it was a race that we sponsored at the Newmarket Craven meeting. And he won the handicap. It was the last race of the day. And he won off a mark of 94. And he won very handily. He was always going to win. And I thought, oh, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with all the top 5 furlong sprint handicaps. So I presented the trophy to Henry Candy, not a man who's bullish by nature. And I said to him the same. You must be looking forward to the handicap marks. Let's hope he doesn't go up too much. And he said, oh, no. The next time he'll run will be in the Palace House at Newmarket on Guineas Day. And I said, oh, OK. He'd be one of the lowest rated horses in the race, though. And he went, yeah, that wouldn't bother me. He's a top class sprinter. Now, when you consider what horses Henry Candy's trained over the years, sprinters as well, Airwave being one of them, he certainly knows the time of day. So you can look at the official ratings for this fella and say, hang on, he's only rated 100. And that puts him actually second lowest in the race. But the way Henry Candy was talking, he sees him as very, very much a group horse, provided the word firm is in the going description. So I'm working on the basis that's the case. You can't really find him in the form book, but listening to a very reserved trainer, he seemed very, very keen on this horse. So I'm expecting Twilight Calls to be a real solid favourite for this race, and maybe not as open as I first thought of.
OK, Pat, very interesting and in-depth there as well. About the Fav, Matt, who you sense is going to be 2 tribes for this. Like the next race we're about to preview is also a tribe race. You're either with this chap and you sense that this is the progressive young sprinter going places, the Henry Candy tick, obviously there. Henry wouldn't waste his arrows whatsoever. He could still go for a big handicap with this chap. And then you've got, of course, the sort of older brigade coming in as well. Tis Marvellous, who is just the best named horse out there. Marv, they called him at Clive Cox's, but he hasn't won first time out, but yet he's the highest rated horse in the race, and he said the market kind of has to have him where he is. Brilliant season for him last year again. Loads of shouts in the studio for him. And then you've got the ones that we just don't know about, the ones fitness wise. So Twilight Calls has had the run. He's on the up trajectory. With or against?
In between.
That lovely fence.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, on form, I can definitely see him taking in this step up in grade. We were sort of quite positive after his handicap run. He's not got that much to find with the best of these. Sort of, we're talking £4 or £5. The market has factored a lot of that in. You know, he's short enough considering that he is taking that step up in grade. I've got in the back of my mind as well that last season he made a really bright start and then his form just tapered off a little bit. It's ticking his favour that obviously he's one of 4, I think it is, that are coming in here with a recent run. Tis Marvellous, like you say. In theory, I think this track should really suit his run style. It's kind of quite often to make up ground on, hard to make up ground on this track. Yeah. But you've got that record fresh, which is an issue. Yeah, I went round in circles with this race for a little bit, and I'm still not...
Well, it's the start of the sprint division. Of course, we've had a couple of races, haven't we? You know, we've had the Camage, for example, at Doncaster, but this is really where whatever wins this tends to go on and be short enough at Royal Ascot, etc., doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is a good race. There are some good, sort of still relatively youngish sprinters in here. I think Hurricane Ivor, you know, the season that he had last year, I mean, he won 3 times, including at Portland. Probably should have won 5. I think he was unlucky not to win at York.
Goodwood?
Ascot, he was drawn on the wrong side, absolutely hammered the ones that he raced with and got beat by one on the other side. Obviously, coming in here first time back, he did win fresh when he was trained in France a couple of years ago. He's conceding weight all round, but I do think that, I mean, he's 5, but I do think there might be a little bit more to come from him this year. And I do think as well, price-wise, he's sort of 7-8 to 1. I'd have him short than that, to be honest. So
you've nailed it there for me, and this is how I looked at this race. Round and round in circles we can go, and you've just said with Hurricane Ivor there having won a handicap, that shows how Twilight calls. It's not that big a step, is it? If you're a progressive fast sprinter, you've got the breeding, you've got the ground, you've got the trainer. We know that they can make the step up to group company. I think this is a race for you out there where you have to pin your hopes on who you think will be the sprinter to follow this season. And he's not had many runs since, but he should have won this last year, and It Came from the Dark is the one for me. No Snarman, of course, Red Walker out there, but Ed's horses are going well. And if he's ready, I just can't see him being out of it. And even if he comes 4th or 5th, I'm going to keep following him. I know there's a big E in him,
Yeah, I mean, like you say, he was unlucky in this race last year. He won that Group 3 at Sandown, didn't he? That was July, and we haven't seen him since. And I mean, he's not necessarily had that much racing over the last couple of years, so it's potentially not an issue, but that would be my sort of slight niggle with him.
They were gutted, but they were very much minding for this year, I think. They just thought, I can remember the story now when Ed came on and he basically said, it's not that bad, we want to save him now for next year.
Right.
So look, that is the Palace House. Let us know below what you think will win. Shall we go to the 340, Pat Cooney? This has been the 2-tribe race of the winter. For the boys in blue, were you with Native Trail viewers? Were you with Caribus, of course, the Autumn Stakes winner? Throw in Luxembourg and a couple of others. We've got a sizzler.
Oh, 100%. And of course, when Native Trail won our Bet365 Craven, we were bottom price immediately after the race at 6 to 4. And I had a few people come up to me saying, yeah, but he was 5 to 1 on. What have we learnt about him? And I was thinking, well, we've learnt that he's trained on for one. And he does hit the finishing line really, really hard, doesn't he? And I say, speaking to connections after the race, William Buick said that he was really, really pleased with him. And everything has gone smoothly with this horse. He's the highest rated 2-year-old. He's come out showing his well-being. I know people say, oh, he hits a flat spot in his races and occasions. Maybe that's the case, but he's unbeaten. And it's all systems go. I say we were 6 to 4, bottom price. He's now trading around about evens. We're a 50 odds first 4 if evens or round about that doesn't float your boat. Maybe a slight concern with Native Trail. He's drawn 15 of 15. Stablemate Corribus has drawn 1. So I'm not too sure from a tactical point of view how that's going to unravel. But the stalls are in the centre, of course. I just keep thinking he is the best in the race. Luxembourg connections do seem to think that the mile might be on the sharp side for him. So struggling to find alternatives. One I can say we have laid at fancy prices all week is Check and Challenge for William Knight. 2 runs, 2 wins. Real step up in grade for that one, but he is unbeaten. He's won on the bridle both times. But just the more I think about it, the more I think Native Trail, everything is in place, and I'm expecting a win.
That William Knight outsider, check it out. John Carson loves Newcastle, didn't he? Because he was asked in the week, John, by some of our reporters, who was the lively outsider in the race. If there was stuck this one in there. Right, this is why we're here, Pat, to help the tactical scenario play out. Let's see if we can do that with Matt Gardner. So, stalls in the centre, that's the first thing to say. Lots of people talking about a golden highway on the rolling mile over the recent years, higher against that stands rail. It does seem remarkable. Even when they put them on the far side, someone can veer over and nearly win the races. If you go to the Cambridgeshire, one of the final big races there of the year, it always seems to be the high runners that dominate. He's in 15, which puts him bang on the fence, doesn't it? When Caribus backers out there saw the 1, oh, come on, give me some help. So you're hoping that pace is around you, aren't you? Where do we map it out, Matt?
I mean, it looks like a fairly even spread to me. The like we were sort of chatting beforehand, weren't we? Boundless Ocean and Point Lonsdale, kind of in 5 and 11, are the more obvious pace ones. The Bywell Legend is pretty keen in his races. I can see him going forward. He's out of 14 next to Native Trail. So on the face of it, it looks like it'll be a fairly even sort of tactical race from that point of view.
So don't worry too much about the draw.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. There have been 2 tribes, haven't there, going into the winter, of course, because you got the feeling that Charlie Appleby, who yet to win this race, of course, he's now throwing the 2 darts. You wondered whether after the Craven, one of them might defect to another race, but you can understand why they're going for it. He wants this tick on the CV. You get it. Caribus, if he came 2nd or 3rd, no disgrace. You've got lots of, you've got Ireland, you've then got the St James's Palace, you've got Sussex, you can go on. Let's talk about Native Trail first, though, because he's obviously, a shade of odds on after his Craven reappearance, where he was workmanlike, wasn't he? And he's got upwards of £7 in hand on official figures. What racing post? That's 122, of course, his rating, isn't it?
Yep.
What did we give him for his Craven reappearance?
Yeah, so he's 122 racing post rating. That comes from the Curragh last year. 121 in the Dewhurst. 115 in the Craven.
Yeah, because not everyone was overly impressed with that, were they?
No, I was quite impressed with him actually. Considering it was a reappearance, I expect they'll have left a lot to work on. I sort of get this flat spot thing, but equally I don't think that is really the case.
I think it's the dip, isn't it, if anything? You look back to the Dewhurst, he goes into the dip, and if you read between the lines between trainer and jockey, William just sits balanced on him, and then once he comes out, the dip goes for him, and the monster appears.
I think he's just this sort of horse that, you get lulled into the sort of horses that really travel strongly, and he's a different type of horse. I almost think that Newmarket has kind of exacerbated that a bit because, like you say, with the dip, and it is the sort of track where, we mentioned earlier, it's not the easiest track to make up ground on, and that's kind of like where he struggles a little bit, just where the quickening away from him. But he's so strong afterwards when he hits that top gear. When we're looking at this sort of race, you look historically, last 10 years, the average winning RPR is 122.
Right.
He's already there.
But he didn't show it on his reappearance.
Nope.
Of course, he wasn't on his racing weight. Loads was said about that. It was a really interesting interview, that, wasn't it, with Charlie, saying, he's the same way as Addy R and the bigger, older horses, Hurricane Lane and all that sort of stuff. This is obviously a freak. We know this. He was an amazing 2-year-old. But we do see them get beaten in this race, don't we? We have, over the years, we've seen it. I can see Pat in there. He's sensing the defeat. What sort of price should he be? Because if he runs to the Craven form, then the others have got every chance, haven't they?
Yeah, I think I almost wouldn't be looking at his level of form from the Craven. I'd be looking at what he did as a 2-year-old and what this sort of scenario might draw out of him. We've talked about the pace. It looks like there might be a decent pacer into aim at.
You get the feeling he would love a strong pace.
A strongly run stiff mile is going to be absolutely ideal for him, and that is the sort of scenario that's going to draw out that kind of high 120s figure from him, which on 2-year-old form he looks more than capable of.
So it's one of these. If he wins, we doff our cap and we've got a special miler. Maybe mile 2 Judd Monty Internationals later on. You don't know. Caribus again. I think he's the quicker horse. I think he's the one with the turn of foot.
I don't think Connections would be too worried if he got beat Caribus. I think they view him as a slightly longer term prospect.
You're sensing that, aren't you? And Charlie Appleby wouldn't say that Native Trail was the best because he believes in this guy. But that defeat, oh my Lord, at Newmarket, remember that? That was astonishing to watch. 101 gubbed, as we say, on the exchange. But I will pass him over. I'm interested in Luxembourg. What do you make of this chap?
I like Luxembourg a lot, but I like him more as a Derby prospect than a Guineas winner.
He's been compared to Camelot, of course, who did this, won the Derby, and then probably should have won a St. Leger. And the Triple Crown is being mentioned, isn't it? Aidan didn't have to compare him to Camelot. These are big colours, of course. They're hoping for a classic in these colours. They've got Tenebrism coming up in the 1000. Let's concentrate on him for a little bit. Beresford winner.
Yep.
He's drawn in 4, so he's hoping that Boundless Ocean... I mean, if Point Lonsdale and him were right next to each other, you imagine that Point Lonsdale would do exactly that, point and go.
Yeah.
Himself, who's, no mug whatsoever, he was thought to be their best 2-year-old, the Cheshire winner.
Yeah, stepping up to a mile as well, that's really going to suit him, isn't it?
Yeah.
He looked like he was crying out for it last year. That's definitely going to suit. I mean, look, Luxembourg, I'm not calling him slow because in that at Doncaster he did show a lot of pace. And when he got there, he just sort of dossed in front and he didn't win by very, very far, but he looked like winning by a lot further. I just think, physically, he looks more like a sort of middle distance 3-year-old to me. Pedigree sort of leads you down that line as well. And he's the sort of horse where if he didn't have a Native Trail in here, you'd be thinking, well, Guineas onto a Derby, whereas Native Trail is kind of above average.
Yeah, so what you're saying, when Camelot did it, it was kind of his race to win, wasn't it? Yeah, okay,
well, I
get it. So there is, and I think that is right. It sort of tempers enthusiasm, but I thought 5-1, I expect him to go close as well. I'd probably, at the odds, just have him on top to give the Native Trail the most to do. It's a bit of a head-scratch race for me. We'll see how the meeting pans out. But you are looking for one that's already run elsewhere this year. Yeah,
I've warmed to Perfect Power. Well, I say warmed to him. I liked him as a 2-year-old, and then I went off him as kind of like a Guineas prospect. But when I went back and watched the Greenham, and first time up I wasn't that impressed. And I watched it a couple of times since, and each time I've watched it, I've kind of gone, well, maybe I can sort of see it. I can see it at the prices. Obviously, they need to keep a lid on him pre-race. Richard Farrey's been pretty open about how tricky he is getting him down to the start and all that sort of stuff. He saw out that 7 furlongs in the style of a horse that I thought would stay a mile. Whether a stiff mile, a well-run stiff mile is really going to suit him or not, I don't know. But if there's a horse in here that's going to quicken and skip away from Native Trail, he's that horse, I think.
And again, you want the fast pace for him so he can cruise into under Super Sumio and show what he's got.
Yeah, so at the prices, I'd definitely be interested in him if Native Trail doesn't give his running.
All right, and there is stamina on the damn side. That is the 2,000 guineas then. A range of opinions. Are you with Native Trail? Are you with Caribus? What do you make of the draw? Get your comments in below. Let's hear from you. We fast move on to Sunday. The Dahlia Stakes, Pat Cooney. One of the prime races of the season for fillies. A big stepping stone towards Royal Ascot and the Matron and all this stuff later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's, I think there's just the 7 runners, but it's an intriguing race. And the front 2 in the race, Phil de Grace and Lilac Rose, actually met the last time they raced, and that was a whopping 205 days ago. So it remains to be seen who's progressed the most since. But there's no denying Phil de Grace has got that very much progressive profile. She really, really took off in those last 2 races of the season. But when she beat Lilac Road lost a shoe that day. Now, when she lost the shoe, I don't know. Maybe it was at the start or maybe it was at the finish. But there was half a length or so between them. I think Ville de Grace had her measure. I expect big things from her. Sir Michael Stout is already amongst the winners so far this season. Ryan Moore booked. All is in place for a big run. You can conceivably say, well, again, it's not quite there on official ratings and so forth. You've got Dream Loper, Ebira over Christophe Sumi on the board. They've actually got a better level of form. But I just think this filly of Sir Michael Stout's, Ville de Grace, she was improving race by race rapidly towards the end of last year. And I expect her to be favourite and go very, very well on Sunday.
Ooh, Fav, that's interesting. Okay, yes, I've got to say she's a filly that I got right. She did some big favours. She caught my eye very much in a race. I remember it was slowly running. She came on. It was Sandown, and then she hosed up at Yarmouth, and I gave her a chance last time as well. This is typical Sir Michael Stout, late maturing filly. Stepping stone for the Winter Forest, of course. This is his race. I'm a sucker for this race, Matt. I always try and find the winner of this, and Usherette was one of my favourite horses. I'm drawn to the French horse, but she doesn't win very often. But on figures, this isn't the most classy edition that we've ever seen. She's got a massive chance, hasn't she?
I'm a big fan of her, actually, in this. Yeah, sort of. If you're getting 7-2, 4-1 for her on form, that's a cracking price. I mean, I totally get the sort of progression standpoint with the Stout filly. You know, she really took off at the back end of last year, like you say. But form figures wise, like you say, Ibera, she hasn't won for a while, but all of her recent form, it's just really solid. Like it's much better than anything else in this race. And she hasn't been running badly, even though she's been getting beat. She, on the face of it, she might be better over slightly further, but you go back to sort of some of her earlier form, these French races when she's winning over a mile and a half, they're kind of like slow quicken. And so I don't really think that's going to be too much of an issue. Just at the prices, I can't get away from her.
The Aga Khan filly then for Racing Post handicapper Matt Gardner. Let's move on to the 340. It's the filly's time to shine. The 1,000 guineas. Aidan O'Brien won 6 of the last 10. He's absolutely farmed this, and he goes for the Newmarket winner herself, Tenebrism, Pat Cooney. Where in the market is she?
Well, she's now the favourite. Obviously, we lost in Spiral, didn't we, at the start of the week? She was the winter favourite. Tenebrism was always challenging her for that spot at the top of the market. 2 runs, 2 wins. Hugely impressive winner of the Cheveley Park when we last saw her. Of course, if you're a backer of her, you're presuming she'll get the mile. And, you know, it's a big field. There's plenty of runners, so she'll get the cover and she should get the race set up to suit her. But, you know, connections immediately after Newmarket were thinking, well, she's very quick, very quick. You had lots of comments like that. Commonwealth Cups got mentioned as well as the 1,000 guineas. So I get it. They're going to start her off and they were 1,000 over the mile. Is she going to get the trip? Don't know. Would you want to back her at 3-1 to find out? Well, maybe. She could just be very, very much the exceptional runner in this race. But as ever, it's a deep old race, isn't it? Tuesday, her stablemate won a maiden, but was quickly well supported for the 1,000 after that. Perhaps more of an Oaks filly, maybe, but she's certainly money around for her for those 2 classics. You've got Discoveries, who is at a high level of form as well. It's a really deep race, and I like Malafath, who beat Zelly, the 2 French fillies. And Malafath, she was an unlucky loser in the Breeders' Cup on fast ground. She's got form on heavy ground. She's got Christophe Sumi on the board. She's got a good level of form. I just think if you're back in Tenebrism, you're presuming she'll stay, and I'm just not so sure about that.
No John Gosden, filly then in Spiral, which did shake up the Enterprise market. Lots said about that. However, bar her, all the right fillies are here, aren't they? You've got the Middle Park winner in Tenebrism, the Boussac winner, of course. Yep. We've got the up-and-comers, last year Prestige winner. We heard from James Ferguson. Pressure off him maybe a little bit. You know, the market not such gazing on it, though price-wise did put up Mise en Scene. You get the feeling that later on she's going to be a big filly for James. Where are we going with this?
I mean, from a form perspective, you could argue Tenebrism should be shorter than she is. You talk, you know, she's 116 RPR. That's sort of similar to Native Trail. That is the standard for the last 10 years of a winner. And it's a real shame that Inspiral's not here because she's also 116. That would have been a proper clash between those two. Like Pat said, the trip is the concern. She was rapid in that Cheveley Park. Pedigree's a mix. Obviously, Caravaggio, the sire. Still relatively early days with him in terms of stepping up to a mile. Damn Immortal Verse with Coronation Stakes winner. So, but it's a little bit of a stretch maybe, particularly on a third run, first time back, all that sort of stuff.
She shot through in the Middle Park, didn't she, from memory? I remember speaking to Aidan after about that, and they were looking at the Breeders' Cup. Everyone was expecting her to go there. They've saved her for this. Look, if anyone's going to win this, according to the last 10 years, it's going to be Ballydoyle and Aidan. He knows exactly what he's doing. There is another filly that complicates matters for me, and they're in Tuesday, as Pat mentioned, who is a half-sister to Minding, the last favourite to win this race in the past 10 years, only one. This is one where they can all change during the winter, isn't it? Yeah. She reminds me a bit of Winter, who when Winter won, she was the leading filly of her generation. She went on to win it, of course, Royal Ascot, Glorious Goodwood. She was an amazing filly, massive great thing. She beat Rhododendron in second, who was 5-4. This has got a smacking of Rhododendron and Winter to me. I think I'm going to chance Tuesday, you know.
I can see that completely. Obviously on paper she's got a lot to find, but we've barely scratched the surface with her, have we? And you know, you look at her, she only got beat by Discovery's first time out, and obviously that's you know, and then she was massively impressive last time. So yeah, you know, you'd be taking a flyer in her on form, but she's got all the potential, doesn't she?
Yeah, that'll do for me. Yeah. So on top,
from a price perspective, I think Tenebrism is kind of the one to be with. A bigger price, I like Juncture for Gay Lyons.
Interesting.
Yeah, she's kind of coming in.
A grey filly.
Yeah, she's coming in and, you know, under the radar a little bit, but all of her 2-year-old form stacks up well. She went to Dundalk in March, and I was really impressed with her that day. Obviously, she wasn't beating loads, but kind of having that prep run with a view to come in here. I do think she's open to quite a lot more improvement. She's around sort of 14, 16 to 1. She might not be good enough up against Tenebrism, but I wouldn't be surprised if she was in the mix for a place.
Judd Monty filly Juncture then for Racing Post handicapper Matt Gardner. Pat, remind us who you've got on top.
I think Malafat. I think she's a very solid option, and will be first 4 places in the race as well.
Vive la France for Pat then. But on Tuesday, when we do these debriefs, I'll be hoping that I'm trumping them with the second string of Ballydoyle. Oh, we've got to that weekend winner time for you out there. And if you don't mind, I shall open the card. 2.25 is the Suffolk handicap. I love this handicap, long established, always in the calendar. I think the boys in blue will take this out pre-Native Trail Caribous time with DeBarbie, who we haven't seen for a little time, but he's in the Hardwick, lightly raced. Some of his earlier form suggests he can carry the same mark that Belrock did when winning the race last year. That'll do for me, Matt Gardner.
805 Doncaster, Sea King for Smart Prescott. Look back at his 2-year-old form. He was beaten by that classic trial winner, Westover. He then finished close up in a Goodwood maiden that the second came out and won that hot 3-year-old handicap at Newmarket. I think the handicapper's taken a real chance with 83 for him. If he's not a mid to high 90s horse, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, and Prescott had something that was second to a very well handicapped horse at Brighton in the week I read about. That's why you're here, you see. I think it's the first time, Pat, anyone's napped a Sir Marcos away from one of the big cars on What a Shout.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a first for everything, isn't there? I'm off to Goodwood, though, in the 316, and it's Moktasab of William Knight. And this fella, he was well back when he won on his seasonal reappearance at Newbury. And he won a 20-runner race. Imagine that. He beat 19 horses. And he travelled through the race so easily. He went up £7 for the win. I think he's a better horse than that. I'm expecting him to come out and win again. He's currently rated 92. This is the sort of horse with that progressive profile. He could easily be in the hundreds by the end of the season. So Muktasab, 316 at Glorious Goodwood.
Absolutely love it. There are your 3 weekend winners. Well, sadly, that's all we've got time for on this classic What a Shout weekend. Pat, great to have you back on. I believe you're coming to the studio to treat us next week.
Yes, all being well, and hopefully we'll get through 2 wonderful days at Newmarket for the classics. And it's just so exciting. You could really be seeing a couple of superstars over the next few days as well. So really looking forward to it.
Pat, enjoy it. We look forward to seeing you next Friday. Bruce will be back in this seat next Friday with Paul Keeley as well, looking at everything Ascot and beyond. Derby trials coming up. Matt Gardner, great to have you back. Can we get you in for Ascot, please?
Yeah, hopefully. Really good time of year, isn't it? All that whiff of potential in the air with the Guineas meeting and leading into York at the Dancy. So, yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to prep you to give us the winner of every single 2-year-old race that week, all right? So we'll get, that's it. You heard it here first. Matt's coming in, and he's going to give you every winner on the Friday pre-race.
I'll give you the lottery numbers while I'm at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have it. Quite right. A safe combination to the Racing Post. That would be lovely. Great to have you watching us as well. Thanks to James Ferguson for coming on. Fingers crossed, Mise en Scene runs a biggie for him in the 1,000 guineas. Whatever you like this weekend, do remember to gamble responsibly. That's our MO here on What a Shout and the Racing Post. Bet365, of course. Don't forget, of course, to download the free must-have Racing Post app. If you haven't done that, you can do so on the Google Play Store or the App Store itself. From myself, Dave Orton, then, have a classic weekend. Enjoy the sport.